Is climate mayhem? I'm glad you asked. One day, Ty Wolf Jones and I were talking about some of the biggest, hairiest problems on Earth and came up with a hypothesis we wanted to test. If you believe in climate change, the only way we'll get past these massive environmental problems is if for-profit companies get involved.
In other words, we've spent hundreds of years getting into this mess. We'll need to spend billions, maybe trillions getting out of it. Therefore, companies need to make money in order for someone to spend it.
Then we asked, can we speak with a dozen or so companies in different verticals of climate tech who are making it part of their mission to be climate conscious and making big bucks while doing it? Well, we did just that.
Thus, Climate Mayhem was born. So follow Jacob Kubica and I along as we listen to some incredible stories to test this hypothesis. Oh, and are you an entrepreneur about to get into this space? You will definitely learn something from these extremely impressive founders and operators of just how possible it is to take on a seemingly impossible task. Mayhem on, Jacob.
Mayhem on, Ty. Ryan Fritsch is the CEO and co-founder of Cloudpaper, the Earth's leading bamboo toilet paper company. But before Cloudpaper, Ryan and co-founder Austin Watkins were two ambitious young guns at Uber Seattle, where they helped grow the region into $1 billion plus revenue generator. They fast followed their roles there at Convoy, where they deepened their product and ops experience in one of the biggest industries in the world, shipping and transportation. But they wanted to make a difference. They wanted to make a splash, something that had more impact, more mission, greater stakes, which ultimately led them to toilet paper. After selling over 1 million rolls of TP, Ryan had learned a thing or two. So Ty, how do you know these guys?
Well, I'm one of the lucky guys that got to work with them at Uber in Seattle. And yeah, these are, Ryan's one of the smartest guys I've met, taking on huge industries, like building that huge business at Uber. Of course, Convoy taking on the huge inefficiencies of transportation and shipping, and now building their own company, taking on arguably even a bigger issue, of course, but bigger industry overall. This is a great episode. You're going to learn a ton from this gentleman. He has a deep experience of understanding this problem, like you said earlier in the episode, around marketing and taking a funny or hard to talk about topic into something that anybody can talk about. We dive into sustainability, deforestation, and of course, a bunch of fun facts about bamboo. We also asked the really hard question, Jacob, what does bamboo toilet paper actually feel like?
Yeah, down there. All right, well, here we go. Oh, and if you're starting to feel a little intrigued, listen closely, and there might be a 20% discount sprinkled in there. Enjoy. Ryan, thanks for coming on the show.
Jacob, Ty, it's great to be here. I'm excited for the conversation today.
Us too. Cloudpaper, you guys have a really cool product, bamboo toilet paper, and you guys got some other products too. You have paper towels. They're called swashcloths. Is that right?
Very close. Called the swish cloth. Swish. The EC even I have a hard time saying swish cloth.
Which it means Swedish cloth, right?
Yeah, Swedish dishcloth. Yeah,
those are cool. They're replacing for sponges. They have much less bacteria on it. And then you guys have done tissues, but those are sold out.
Yeah, they sold out quick in the first day.
People like those.
They sold out. Yeah, it's been interesting. Yeah, we launched with toilet paper in 2019, bamboo tree-free toilet paper, and then started rolling out additional products. And I think once people a lot of people, this is their first time kind of exploring an alternative to their Cottonelle, their Charmin, their traditional kind of paper products. And so once they kind of saw that there are sustainable alternatives out there, a lot of people were kind of hooked on it. Say, okay, well, what's next? When can I get paper towels?
Nice.
When can I get facial tissues? So as we go, we're seeing that momentum and that demand grow. And I think it's a really kind of fun story that our facial tissues launched. And then by 5 p.m. on launch day, we had to go to a wait list. So that was fun.
Wow.
Yeah. I actually got to order your product through GoPuff yesterday, and that was great. I got to try it out today and the past 24 hours. And I realized doing the research, and I guess in some way immersing myself into your product, led me to all of the other little nuanced ways I could be more environmentally friendly in what I do. Like,
I love it.
You guys had this blog article that was like, hey, here are other things. You could do toothpaste tablets instead of toothpaste, right? Or I had a friend that used metal straws instead of plastic straws. Like, things like that. And I was like, wow, I thought I was already good with being a vegetarian and composting and driving an EV, but those are just like the big consumer facing things, right? There's like so many small things where you can incrementally get better and better. And this is a great example, you guys.
Yeah, and that's part of the idea there as well, Jacob, is once we can kind of again get people to think about even the toilet paper that they're using, it kind of opens up this whole spectrum.
Really
like, well, what else can I swap, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's been interesting, when we look at like reviews on our website, or when people share or talk about us on social, it was again insightful for me, because when people were talking about cloud paper, as much as they were excited about the fact that it's tree free and our products are not contributing to deforestation, they were equally as excited that it was plastic free. That's kind of an eye opener for me. It's like plastic free is this like theme that is also gaining a lot of momentum in households. It's an easy swap, and that's what led to that swish cloth, which we can talk more about. But it's a really great alternative to a sponge, which traditionally is full of plastic, or even like your disinfecting wipes, which are plastic wipes shipped in a plastic container wrapped in plastic on that store. And so ours is all of our packaging is always compostable or recyclable, and no plastic in the product. And so just kind of hearing what was interesting to our customers, and the same thing like you said, Jacob, as they were kind of going through this journey, like, well, what else can I swap out? How else can I be more sustainable? It was kind of that signal that led to some of our product development as well.
That's powerful. There's a lot of different paper products too, and recycled paper does overall just have such less of an impact. We'll talk about that later. So Ryan, as a startup founder, startups pretty stressful, pretty demanding. There's endless work to-do list. The audience probably notices you have a pretty calm demeanor. How do you do it?
I appreciate the question. I appreciate the call out, because I think it's something that you have to work on. And it's something I've been working on. And I get the question more often than I would have thought. I think it is part of this. I think there's a little bit of this kind of heuristic, or this assumption of what the quote unquote founder is, that you see in the press and whatnot. And maybe kind of some of my style runs counter to that. And so I think the calm demeanor, I think probably comes from a couple different areas. I think number one, kind of generally, both at Cloud Paper and just in my life, I try to index incredibly high on humility, right? Truly kind of listening to others' thoughts, opinions, pushback, feedback, and really truly listening, which I am a strong believer that being a good listener is a skill that you have to practice, especially, again, you kind of, as a founder, there is a lot of these kind of assumptions that, you're clear and decisive, you're pounding on the table, you're a visionary, everything you say is, minted in gold plates. And I think that it's easy for the kind of that attitude to take over. And I think you have to almost kind of fight back against your instincts and actually just kind of pause and don't be the first person to speak all the time. That's something that I practice a lot. And a lot of times it's funny, as you use the Cloud Paper example, a lot of times someone will have to proactively or like explicitly ask me, like, Ryan, do you have any thoughts? Because I'll sit silent, because I want to set that precedent that it's, I'm not gonna, cut someone off with my vision. And that's the way the things are gonna go, because I want to truly hear what other people think. And I think not more importantly than kind of having quick decisions, I think one of the more important things that in terms of the workload of a founder is hiring the right people and building the best team possible. So for me, it's, I start with like, okay, I'm a strong believer in that. So if we're going to spend a bunch of time and energy and resources and bringing the best people in to do a certain job, why not let them do that job then? Like, who am I to tell our head of marketing how to execute on it? Like, who am I to, like, that's what they do. They're the best person in the world that I could find to go and do that job. Let them do the job. So all that to say, I think it's something that I've practiced a lot in terms of this kind of humility. I think, like you said, Jacob, I think that probably comes through if, I'm doing an interview or a podcast like this, where, I'm okay with a little quiet, little breathing room, taking a breath, because I want to hear what you have to say and have a dialogue versus me just waiting to tell you something. Right. So I think that's something I've been practicing. I think comes across as, like you said, being cool as a cucumber, which I think is an attribute that I appreciate. And the other thing too, in terms of kind of practicing these skills, I'm also a very strong believer in, whenever possible, kind of resetting your equilibrium or your baseline in terms of what scares you. And I think generally speaking in front of audiences, doing interviews, public speaking, most people would have that on their list of things that scare them, until they practice it. Right. And so I think a very important aspect of this of what we're doing is, or at any early stage startup is doing, is you have to tell your story. You have to be articulate, you have to be eloquent, and you have to tell the world what the heck you're up to, why you exist, where you're headed. And as you go out and tell that story, you need to practice speaking to different audiences, whether that's live TV, podcasts like these, whatever it might be. And so whenever possible, I try to kind of scare myself in the next opportunity so that it all becomes easier, right? Like within the last year, I've done live TV for the first time, right? And that was scary. that was scary. And it was on Cheddar TV, and they do something in the realm of tens of millions of eyeballs a month. And that was definitely scary. But now I have that experience. Check that box. So now the next one will be just slightly easier, right? I'll get slightly better at it and do the next one. I did a talk at a graduation ceremony at University of Washington. I was scared going into it, but now I have that experience. Now I'll get slightly better. Maybe I get invited back next year. And so I think it's another one of these skills that you can practice, kind of public speaking, doing kind of public, facing, or having public facing opportunities. And it's one that I try to really kind of to focus on and getting better at. And it's good to hear that it is kind of manifesting as a cool demeanor. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, totally. It's impressive. Well, you mentioned your story in some way that crossed with the cloud paper story. Within that story, there's this individual called Philostachus edulis. Who is Philostachus edulis, and how long did it take to grow up?
Also known as Moso bamboo or giant bamboo. Yeah, bamboo is.
That's giant bamboo. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's like one of its nicknames. It's bamboo has become such a large part of my life. Yeah, I've never thought of it that way. But it is like a character in my story right now. Just like generally the plant of bamboo. So Moso bamboo is one type of bamboo. There's a couple different types of bamboo that you can use for paper products. I think both of you have likely seen bamboo is kind of grown in popularity across clothing, construction materials, and now paper. And what makes Moso and just bamboo generally so interesting as a raw material, and specifically for paper, I think you said, how long does it take for bamboo to reach maturity or to grow up? One of the fun facts that you guys can use at your next cocktail party or whatnot, the fastest growing plant in the world is bamboo. It's commonly thought of as a tree because it looks like trees. It looks like kind of a tree in a lot of different ways, but it's actually a grass, and it's the fastest growing plant in the world. Some species, including Moso, can grow up to 3 feet a day. So you can literally have a cup of coffee and watch bamboo grow. Certain species grow before your eyes. And when you think about harvesting bamboo for products, bamboo can be harvested for the first time after about 5 years, right? And then it can be harvested annually after that. You look at, what have we been using before bamboo, and especially for paper, and it's been trees. And trees aren't ready for harvest for paper products for 50, 60, 70 years. If you're lucky, what happens, which makes it even worse, is a lot of times we're actually cutting down old growth trees. Now you're talking hundreds and hundreds of years just to make throwaway, disposable, single-use paper. Where in this case, you have this essentially, if you have in your yard, it grows like a weed, grows like crazy, 3 feet a day. It's the grass, it's harvested annually, it's ready to be harvested in 5 years. So it's just far more sustainable in that regard than cutting down trees. And keep in mind too, it needs to fuel that growth with something, right? It doesn't just happen magically. Right. So what it's doing is absorbing a massive amount of carbon and then releasing it as oxygen. That's and also second fun fact is that it does that more than any other plant. Some research will point to up to 4 times. Bamboo will sequester 4 times as much CO2 than any other plant in the world, and will release 30 to 50% more oxygen than
because of that growth rate.
Right, it's got to fuel that rapid growth. Yep.
Yeah, interesting.
Incredible. Yeah, I learned that also bamboo doesn't need to be replanted after it's harvested. It just keeps going. Like you don't have to do any special treatment around it. It just will keep going. Hey, I didn't know how much time you guys wanted to spend. I could sit here all day the next hour and a half.
I bet.
So let's keep it.
Let's separate a bonus episode on.
Let's keep it going. So you're right. So that is what makes it especially interesting, especially when we kind of juxtapose it with the traditional way of deforesting land to make and forest to make paper, where because you don't have to replant bamboo, you just harvest it annually, and you're not disrupting the root system. You're not disrupting the soil. You're just harvesting it, and it continues to grow. So it not to be pandering or anything like that, but the way I look at it is it's very much like getting a haircut, right?
Yeah,
like you get a
exactly.
haircut and it's boom, it starts to
Yeah.
grow again. You're back at haircut in 4 weeks versus
don't rip
when
out
you're
the
cutting down
roots.
trees to make paper. I'm sure you guys have seen, you know, the NASA images and whatnot. The land can be just absolutely decimated to the point where nothing else is going to grow there. So you take these rich, thriving ecosystems and you disrupt the soil, you're ripping up the root system, and you just leave it as like a barren land, which is, you know, that is probably kind of the core problem that we're trying to solve with cloud paper and moving towards more renewable, sustainable fibers and inputs for our demand for paper.
Okay, excellent, very interesting.
Wow.
I do have more questions around bamboo. I'm gonna hold them back.
Fair enough.
Ryan, what got you interested in sustainability? And if it is climate, it seems like it's more on the subject of sustainability. Like, when did you start thinking about these issues?
Mm-hmm. The company's been around for 3 years. You know, call it a year. Kind of really thinking about this before that. So we started Cloud Paper with one other person, Austin, and we were working together actually in technology startups. So we didn't get our career started in climate change or sustainability. Mm-hmm. We were working at Uber here in Seattle, and then another marketplace startup called Convoy in Seattle. So we were kind of working in kind of these very hyper growth startups. I think what we kind of got addicted to, in a sense, is kind of this entrepreneurial energy, kind of just being able to kind of have an idea, execute it, and kind of see that change happening in the quote unquote real world. So that was super interesting to see, and especially with, you know, both these companies became massive runaway successes, and so you saw how quickly kind of a good idea can materialize in the world. So, you know, we were working together at both these companies for coming up on at the time 7 years working together, and both knew that we wanted to kind of take a swing and try something out on our own. And it really wasn't much conversation or back and forth, to be honest with you, before we landed on we want to get into sustainability and climate change in a big way. And I think, you know, back to the kind of the idea of kind of this entrepreneurial energy and momentum, at this time, there was all kinds of companies and investment being made, startups that were launching in this space. And it was inspiring, right? You were seeing all kinds of companies launch and tackle all kinds of different problems, from removing plastic waste to increasing recycling and you name it.
Do any come to mind right now when you thought about some companies?
Yeah. So one that was super interesting to me at that time was a company called Blue Land.
Okay.
They do reusable cleaning supplies for the home. So instead of buying like a single-use plastic thing of dish soap or a disinfecting spray that's served in a plastic bottle, they will ship you a glass container, and then all the detergent or the solution is tablet based, kind of a dissolvable tablet, like I don't know what like an Alka-Seltzer. So you put it in the water, because most of this stuff, like, you know, your disinfecting spray is just water, a little bit of concentrate in a big plastic bottle. And so they went and solved that problem. What was interesting to me, I was like, wow, this company is going out and like reinventing the 409 bottle. Like how cool is that? Like there's going to be no stone left unturned. Like we're figuring out our soap dispensers. So that was one like kind of very specific example at that time. And then that kind of led us down this path. It's like, you know, what else is essentially being overlooked? Where else have we got kind of comfortable with the status quo in terms of, you know, products or routines in our daily lives? And that's what kicked off what was then a lot of research. But the research focused in on whatever product or space that we get into. We want our solution to drive positive impact for the planet. We didn't want to just like make something for the sake of making something. Whatever it did had to be good for the planet from day one. And then through enough kind of curiosity in life and going through our daily routines, came across a lot of the research at that time around paper and pulp industry and the industry being as a driver of deforestation and climate change more broadly.
And then you went to toilet paper. So you guys have had a little bit of fun with this.
Right.
I mean, you know, it's one of those things, I think it's such a part of our lives that we don't even think about it a lot of the times, right? It's needed. And of course, you know, there's these points in the pandemic where people freaked out about it when they thought it might not be around. But other than that, it's just this like normal thing that we have to have all the time around us. What led you to kind of like, oh, wait a second, what was that kind of aha moment of like, toilet paper, there's something, this is interesting. Like you could change the industry, change lives potentially with this one necessary thing.
Yep. So I think what it was once we started to really understand, well, it's two things. One, the size of the market. The size of the market. So right away you're talking in billions of dollars of paper products sold just in the US, really by 2-3 companies that all the brands kind of roll up into.
Wow.
So it's just a massive market. And then, like you said, it's one of these things that I think it becomes super clear to us where it was just such a routine that has been ingrained in us. And we even heard a couple of stories anecdotally of someone. So I just, the paper products I buy were the products that I had as a kid growing up. Right. And just like, it almost is like this kind of multi-generational routine. Like if mom and dad were buying Bounty paper towels and Angel Soft, and that's been just ingrained, it's kind of what you buy on your next Costco trip as an adult. I was like, this is like really, it's like such a ingrained. And by the way, I think that it's unsurprisingly like this kind of autopilot style of routine. Like of all the things the modern person has to think about and deal with and resolve on a daily basis, usually a deep dive into their paper products is not making the list on a good day, right? So like understandably, like we have to be able to automate some things in our lives and not think about them. Otherwise we'd all we'd be paralyzed. So like I understood where this kind of lack of interest, this lack of thought was coming from, because I did the same thing. So then we say, okay, but what if we can crack through that? What if we can tell our story? What if we can get people to switch? Then that routine will actually be a benefit, because then we can switch everyone into tree-free, sustainable paper, and then hopefully that becomes a routine. And one of the dreams of the company is, can we create the same multi-generational routine? Like, can we have someone? Like it's probably going to be another 15 years from now, 18 years from now, until we'll know if this comes true. But will someone growing up, buying their first home or renting their first apartment buy cloud paper because their parents today in 2022 are buying cloud paper? And if we can do that, then you're driving real kind of multi-generational change, right?
Yeah.
Love it. That's actually one of the things I was going to talk about. You talked about the size of the market, obviously paper in general. Are the numbers out there? I'm sure they are, of toilet paper. Like, what percentage is toilet paper of the paper market? Do you know?
So if you look at the kind of household paper market, the lion's share is toilet paper and paper towels, with toilet paper being number one. So the vast majority is those two products, and toilet paper is technically a bit bigger than paper towels. And then everything else is kind of makes up the long tail, from dinner napkins and whatever else in the household.
Paper plates.
Paper plates, right? But it's toilet paper is definitely up there.
By far.
Ready for fun fact number 3?
Yes.
Over here. Most popular SKU at Costco is their 40 count Kirkland Signature 2-ply toilet paper. And that's why it's at the back of the store, because most people are there to get that toilet paper, and they walk by the TVs and the diamond rings and the vacuum they don't need and everything else. And so it sits in the back because they know you're going to go get that toilet paper. You're not leaving without it because you need it, and they sell a lot of it. So yeah, that's it just kind of put the size of the market and the kind of that. And this is why you saw the craze in 2020, right? It's like people were really worried and concerned about, they said, I need to get water, shelf stable foods, and toilet paper. Like it's literally up there in terms of like life essentials with running water.
Amazing.
In terms of how people prioritize during this kind of anxiety inducing period of spring 2020.
And it was just crazy how people just kind of like heard something about it might not be around and just freaked out, like, and just went kind of the exact opposite. But I also love what you pointed out at the beginning of this question was, if we could change the habit, right? Like if you could change the habit from paper, from cut down trees to something else, you would have, because it's one of the biggest things we use without even thinking, it's one of the biggest places we could have change, which is really, really a great way of thinking about it.
Yep.
So curious though, what got you to bamboo? So you're looking at this market, you're looking at paper and pulp, what suddenly cued you into this being the potential solution?
For us, it was a desire to move quickly. I think it's kind of the best way to get to the point. I think the urgency of the problem, demanded it. We've been, depending on where you look, call it 100 to 150 years, toilet paper was first introduced in the market. And at least in North America, we've been cutting down trees every day since then for 150 years and actually the trend is accelerating, not decelerating, right? And it's
Because of
And it's one
developed
of these kind of,
nations, more developed
what was that?
nations. Is it because of more developed nations, like developing nations?
More demand for
Yeah.
tissue products over time. And then
Wow.
and then in terms of the lack of innovation in the core fiber, it comes down to they've never had the pressure to do it, right? It's like your cliche kind of innovator's dilemma problem, right? It's like, well, these large multinational paper companies are making a good amount of money selling their brands. Like, why rock the boat, right? No one's kicking down their door to rock the boat. And it's been 100 years. Why change now? And then you build these supply chains around this and make these massive investments. It becomes very, very hard to unwind. And we didn't want to sit around essentially and run a 5-year R&D cycle to develop some new proprietary fiber developed in a lab. Like, is there room for that? Like, probably. And I think cloud paper will be a big part of just driving R&D and true innovation in the space. But while we're doing that, every roll of cloud paper we sell now made with bamboo is one less roll of toilet paper we use to cut down trees. And so we're doing both. And bamboo had a bit of an existing ecosystem, Ty, or a market, because it is more popular as a product outside the US and for paper. It was a supply chain we could plug into for the sake of urgency and kind of solving this problem quickly, kind of get a product out to market while we work on kind of other longer term R&D. And then, it also is a high quality product. You can pulp bamboo and create a soft, durable, absorbent paper product, as opposed to, I think right now, or pre cloud paper or pre bamboo paper products. If you did want to make a sustainable switch in this space, you had a recycled paper product as your alternative. And in terms of sustainability, it is a far better product than using virgin wood pulp. The problem is it's a very low quality product. Recycled toilet paper is a lot of receipt paper, for example, newsprint, and it's no surprise you're not going to create a soft toilet paper out of receipt paper, right?
Interesting. Yeah.
And so with bamboo, we get all the sustainability benefits. We can move quickly to go to market, but then also deliver a high quality product to the market so that we can get more and more people to switch, which was important to us, right? We're not actually that interested. So I'll say this. We're more interested in getting the household or the family that right now is buying, your plush, ultra soft Charmin. We want to get them to switch to bamboo paper products more so than the person already using recycled. The person who already using recycled is doing the right thing, comparatively compared to using virgin wood pulp. So like, more power to them. Now, if they want to move to a higher quality, softer product, we're right here. We'll send them a box, no problem. I think the bigger challenge, the scarier problem to go and solve is getting the family that's been using through 2 or 3 generations, has used nothing but Charmin. Can we convince them to switch to a bamboo paper product? And that's what we're super focused on.
It's interesting. We talked to another company, B2B space, totally different space in this energy renewable credits, but they had this term of additionality, right? Net new projects in there. And I almost kind of think like you're going after these people who don't recycle, are actually, you're looking for net new customers who make this shift. And I love that. That's a bigger challenge, but more interesting and more impactful. So I have to ask this question because we know through the hemp industry that there's always been these conspiracy theories of the paper and deforestation industry, et cetera. Why aren't we using more bamboo already in the States, or other places for that matter?
I think it goes back a bit to the companies that, and not to play into any conspiracy theory or not, but the companies that had the distribution, the market share, the mind share of, like your average consumer at a Target or wherever else, never had an incentive to introduce bamboo or hemp or anything or any other fiber, because people weren't demanding it, right? So one of the kind of key paramount pieces of literature that played a very pivotal role in starting cloud paper was this report called The Issue with Tissue, released by the NRDC. It first came out in 2019. Also, we launched the company, no coincidence. And they do it every year now. So on their 3rd version, it's 2 parts. One, it was a bit of an expose on essentially where does your toilet paper come from? What they pointed to is, go into a retail store today, pick up one of your major store brand. On average, about 30% of that roll is coming from the Boreal Canadian forest, which is our largest old growth forest in the world, and we're using that create paper products. So, don't always believe the talking points that the paper industry is running these ultra efficient, ultra sustainable tree farms. Like, it's part of it, but this research points to that good 30% of that roll is made with old growth forest. So,
wow.
The point there, Ty, is that came out in 2019. 100 years after toilet paper was invented, and we were cutting down trees to make paper. And whatnot. So you can see the tide shifting, but it's a relative in terms of the arc of the history of toilet paper, a focus on, well, what the heck are we doing to make paper today, and kind of driving it back to its source. Relatively new phenomenon. There's never been that demand from consumers or nonprofits, NGOs, whatnot, to make a shift. So again, back to our other conversation, like why rock the boat? But again, what's promising and exciting, especially for us, is that shifting a bit. You're seeing kind of the momentum move towards products like ours, because it's becoming more transparent for people to kind of see where their products are coming from, toilet paper and elsewhere, right? And this is back to the conversation around getting plastic out of the home and people composting more. And we saw, like, people are taking this stuff seriously and trying to find these swaps, and a product like this traditionally, like most people, if you're given the option, say, would you rather cut down a tree for toilet paper that you're going to flush away, or a paper towel you're going to throw away right away?
Interesting.
Or would you rather sustainably harvest the fastest growing plant in the world that doesn't need to be replanted after harvesting, that grows 3 feet a day, that absorbs more carbon and leaves more oxygen in trees? But most people, I would wager, will say, and by the way, I'm going to deliver it to you for the same price as what you're paying now, and to your doorstep, and at a high quality point. People will vote there. So now it's our challenge to get that story out there and pose that question in various different ways to folks, and kind of break through a bit of that, again, that kind of routine to talk to people about this problem and what we see as the solution.
It's interesting, that word keeps coming up, right? There's like a routine with toilet paper that you don't really think about, and that probably ties to the whole industry and the whole supply chain there.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because even these big companies we're running out of trees you can cut down. I mean, they're starting to grow more and do those things, but it is not finite in the sense that it never comes back, but finite in the sense of, like you said, the timing of when do you need this? Where does the supply meet the demand? Pretty interesting. Another thing that we've been chatting with a lot of these companies and people about is kind of the funding in this space. And I think it's, really relevant to you guys in the sense that you went to a consumer brand, but there's probably a B2B or business brand here as well, or a wholesale brand at the very least. And so, but you came from the startup space. You came from the tech startup space. So institutional investing a bit, venture capital and these types of things. And one of the things that we've been kind of exploring is, where is institutional money and venture capital in this space? You guys have, if anybody's looked you up at all, we'll see that you've gotten both some institutional money, but also some unique sources of money that people probably know the name of, a few of them. How did that play into the funding strategy? Was it because there was a gap in the VC world? How did this funding strategy kind of take shape for you guys?
Mm-hmm. It's a great question. And it's one I would say the investor group are definitely taking this seriously, right? I think that there's a bit of a misconception that it's like, it's not a priority, for example, or it's kind of a nice to have if there's jokes about launching your ESG fund and whatnot. But as someone who sat on the other side of the table with a pitch deck, walking through a lot of different types and styles of investors, from like institutional VCs to family offices, I can tell you people are taking this seriously,
right,
for a lot of different reasons, right? And so it's definitely at the forefront of a lot of investors' minds in terms of kind of investing in the next wave of companies fighting climate change. So, and like you said, while right now, especially after 2020 and the kind of TP shortage, we've been heavily focused on our consumer brand. We aren't just a consumer company. I think you hit the nail on the head on that. How we have a wholesale brand, a B2B brand, and kind of growing new distribution channels as well. So it does, change things.
Trying to get in the back of that Costco's, right? We're trying
right.
Got to get in the back of that Costco.
Back in that Costco, or hotels, for example, are a big customer of ours, because they, as a corporate entity, want to be a steward of change and do the right thing. And this is it's easy swap for them. Kind of one example of our kind of multi-channel, omni-channel approach. And then I'd say when it came down to who are the best investors to bring on board, for us, I think we've touched on this theme in a couple different ways, but we're super focused on finding interesting and creative ways to tell our story. Again, not to use that same word again, Ty, but to break through the routine, to break through the noise, to get people to kind of think, even for just a couple minutes, think about their paper product. And it's, again, it's easier said than done. And so when we were looking at the investor group, it was who is kind of looking to jump on board with Cloud Paper because they're super into what we're doing. They are advocating for what we're doing, and they can help us tell our story, right? And that was a really important part of our funding strategies. Who can help us, whether it's them literally kind of telling our story, whether it's through social media or whatnot, or helping us think through the best ways and helping us attract the best talent and people and support team that can help us craft our message in a way that will resonate with a large group of people. And a key prerequisite of that is you got to believe in what we're doing to kind of passionately tell our story and be an advocate. And so that was a key filter for us, like who is interested. And it's pretty easy to tell, like depending on how much time someone talks about, or I should say the kind of set of questions that get asked, right? If someone keeps diving into, wait, tell me more about bamboo. Wait, tell me more about the carbon sequestration of that, and they kind of end, environmental impact of that. It's a pretty clear signal that they're into this because they want to see this. They want to see this product out in the world, and to use it themselves and to kind of be an advocate for a large scale shift to more sustainable paper.
I love the way you frame this. I think this doesn't get talked about enough in funding strategies or going out and getting funding, or the type of investors that are out there, which are people who can bring a value add to the startup or the company or the product that you're trying to launch. And while you didn't say that explicitly, you did. You said you need somebody who can help us break through this routine, which means someone who believes in the mission and to some degree has a platform, right? I think anyone who would look you up would know that you've got some big name investors who aren't your traditional, like I said, VCs. They may be actors and other startup founders. But you made a comment to me earlier in our prep session around, like, there is a reason why these people are there, not just because they have a certain celebrity, but because they actually believe in this and they can become a platform for that. I think it's an interesting, I think a super important point though for founders, for people going into building a company of any type, to have funding partners who bring the right kind of value add that you're looking for. So the fact that you guys were able to kind of identify that and then find some really unique investor types to join your group is super cool. Just wanted to make that comment, I guess, more than anything, but I love that funding strategy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And there's a lot of, tips and tricks and advice and do this and don't do that. And it can be a lot. And I'll tell you, it was a lot going through it for my first time. And so it was a kind of comforting way a level of comfort, kind of cut through the noise. But at the end of the day, who's getting behind us because they want to see this product exist in the world more than anything else. And that was just a very good kind of forcing function to kind of cut through all the advice and whatnot, because there's a lot of it out there in terms of how to tackle your first fundraise. So
it's disheartening. It makes it so it's like super approachable for everyone.
Super approachable. One other piece of this that we've been exploring a bit, which is a lot in this space. I love the comment that you said VCs and investors care. Like they really are paying attention to this space, but so is the government, right? And we've got some programs and some things out there. But you guys are, that are supporting EVs, right? And manufacturing in certain spaces. I don't think that's part of the paper look right now. Does that need to change? Is there enough kind of government involvement here to support companies like you guys or others that are trying to break up this industry, similar to how they're going and subsidizing electric vehicles or things like that?
Yeah, that's interesting. And I think with the most recent bill or act, there was a heavy focus on subsidizing EVs, both for the consumers and on the manufacturing side. And one side of the coin is, like, I think that is great just broadly. And two, what it's also doing, which, part of the problem we're trying to solve, is it just brings things like EVs or solar or wind energy a bit more to the mainstream in a certain way. It makes it more accessible, for example, which is very much our focus.
Right.
Like, how do we make these kind of sustainable swaps, whether it's as small as switching your paper or as big as buying an electric vehicle? How do we kind of how do we make that switch or that trade-off as much kind of at parity as possible, or even incentivize it where it actually is a more prudent decision to go EV versus not, or go bamboo TP versus not. And so in that regard, kind of from that macro lens, I think it's great to see the support there to kind of tip the incentive scales a bit to help people move towards more sustainable routes. But you're also correct that we're not going to see immediate tangible benefit in the same way that maybe an EV manufacturer might. But I think that, there's a lot of different areas that we can focus on from the perspective of a government. And I think this will be likely on the list, because again, I think it's the problem of deforestation, the way that the traditional paper industry has existed for many, many decades. The light is continuing to shine on it brighter and brighter and brighter. And, to me, it's only a matter of time until you do see some of this kind of large scale national support, or kind of attention, I should say, from a kind of legislative perspective. We'll see if it makes it into, paper manufacturing, U.S. tree-free paper manufacturing subsidies make it into the next act. Like, I'll take it if so.
Love it. You got to kind of push for that.
We don't have any lobbyists yet, so
exactly.
Maybe
we
that's
don't have any lobbyists yet. Right. And I know you're not you don't like to focus as much on the advice giving portion of being a founder, but on the other side of that, there's definitely some learnings and some things. Anything, as we start to kind of think of our audience and going, hey, you want to go into this space, any, things that you would maybe say to look out for, watch out for, pitfalls to plan for earlier than later in your journey?
Yeah. What's the saying, Ty? Don't let perfect be the enemy of good. Something like this. I guess I should know the saying more before I go into this next monologue that this whole thing's based on. But I really do believe in just getting started on what you're interested in and what you think might be a good idea, right? Don't necessarily worry to, whether it's a pitch deck or an email introducing the idea to an investor you got introduced to or whatnot. Like, don't worry about everything being so polished. I mean, just go get feedback early in a kind of raw, rough stage of where your idea is at, and just get started and start working on it, right? Kind of put the research stock down and just go out and try it and talk to people. And it's getting easier and easier to run small scale tests, even in physical products. Like with software, especially, of course, it's easy to, build in the open, launch betas, do that. But even in physical products, like you could, with companies like Alibaba, for example, you could get in touch with manufacturers from all around the world and order, like we were talking about the reusable container example earlier. Order, a case of glass containers and try it and test like your idea to run your new concentrate to get rid of plastic clean bottles and just kind of get started and be comfortable and okay with kind of just getting your hands dirty. Not to use a overused cliche, but just really get started. And the other thing too, and this is why, Ty, we were talking a bit before, is I try to not give like advice. I can give my opinion and share my experience things, but there's plenty of advice out there. There's a lot of advice out there for someone starting their first company, right? And a lot of it's really bad, in my opinion. Some of it's probably pretty good. Some of it's probably really insightful. But as a first-time founder going into, launching a company, hopefully that's going to do right by the planet, how do you sift through all the noise, right? You could just run into this state of doing nothing but reading Twitter threads about how to nail your first pitch, but then never go and actually do the thing. Versus just like kind of getting started and be a bit vulnerable. So that's what I say there. So the pitfall to avoid is just kind of almost being kind of nervous or afraid to kind of expose your ideas, kind of get out there and get started on it.
Who's had great advice for you?
That's a good question. I would say the best advice we've gotten is through people in our immediate network and physical network, I should say, as well, kind of pre-remote work. My boss at Convoy, who's a serial entrepreneur and just an amazing guy named Grant. I think some of the best advice I had came from him. And I think part of it, one, he knows what he's talking about. He's done this before. He's lived it. But also we had like a level of trust that I think you don't have, on Twitter with certain individuals or whatnot, or whatever it is, where we had that level of trust where, back to my earlier point, I could be more open and vulnerable and say, hey, I don't have the super sexy pitch deck that I spent 100 hours on in Canva, but I have some ideas I've been thinking through. And like we have that like kind of safe platform to talk through these things. And then he also, on the flip side, would feel comfortable telling me where I'm wrong, where I'm messing up. Like he didn't need a buffer what he was saying, right? For whatever kind of perception he needed to protect. And so we just have honest conversations. And so and
Nice.
then, so I think the point there, Jacob, is, for me, again, for whatever it's worth, for me, I saw more value and advice with people that I was closest with through kind of working at Starts, building this network, far more so than, whatever the blog post was that month from whatever hot thought leader is on the scene that month.
Yeah. Very interesting, right? Because you can seek the advice of, a book or someone online buying their course, or like you said, reading Twitter, or the people closest to you. And you're probably gonna get the richest advice from the people in proximity to you. So got a 2-part question for you. So we've learned there's a consumer appetite for this, which is awesome. You mentioned kind of the cross-generational family first part. So who's your customer persona?
Too. Our customer persona is it's one of these ones that I think it's probably always evolving, and we learn a little bit more every day. We try to have a super hands-on approach to customer service, for example, and really kind of have dialogues with these folks. We automate some things where we can, but very much are high touch, so we can gather this feedback and signal and data from the folks that are using our product. What I would say, our persona, I think we're getting very close, if not at that spot now where I mentioned we want to go and target the bounty, Charmin, Continental buyer, and have those folks switch. And I think there's a couple different ways we can kind of identify that. But I think one of the key things that we look for is how people talk about our product once they've made the switch. And some people will explicitly say, I was using this brand, I switched over. But you can also pick up on it in other language as well, as where they basically, what they're saying is, I was jaded previously, or hesitant, I should say, to move to a sustainable solution because usually it's more expensive, lower quality, less convenient. But I switched to cloud paper and I love it. And here's all the reasons why. I think that means that's the interesting point where someone says, I was skeptical. I wasn't already making the sustainable switch, but something cloud paper did just got me just over that hump to try it. And now I love it. And the vast majority of people that buy cloud paper are actively subscribing to it and getting regular deliveries on 3, 4, 6 month cadence, which again is super promising for us because it's back to our favorite word of the segment here, the routine. We're starting to see that routine play out with people who had a previous routine with another name brand. So, and then I would say it's usually households. We're seeing more just based on the quantity that we send out and the frequency, more bulk orders as well. So we're seeing more and more of our 96 count we have on our website get shipped out.
Oh, wow.
Which is a lot of toilet paper. It's about a 40-pound box. It's big. It's a big box. And so now you're actually talking about the Costco buyer, right? Yeah. Now we have the Costco buyer. And I think a lot of times with consumer goods, especially recently, there's kind of an assumption that it's, your target market is your millennial consumer, 18 to 25-year-old, that's heavy on social media. And that's probably true for a lot. But we're actually seeing more and more skew towards the Costco buyer who's going to buy 96-year-olds, put it in their detached garage, have it start. And that's very super interesting for us to kind of go down that, kind of move down towards that direction versus say if someone wants to if someone orders a 6-pack of toilet paper every 6 months, probably going to an apartment in a city somewhere. That's also great. They're switching to tree-free paper, but I think it probably runs a little bit counter to a lot of kind of CPG, how a lot of other CPG companies might answer that question around who's our persona or who are we targeting. And that plays out in the way that we handle kind of our digital and social marketing, for example, and how we kind of prioritize product development is skewing towards, those Costco buyers.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
I do want to call out one thing. I know it's our favorite word this conversation is. I just heard something you guys did innovatively, which is replacing a routine with a new routine. This idea of the subscription model, doing that thing that we don't really want to think about, or we go into Costco and we head straight to the back to grab that, whatever it is, the toilet paper. Now you guys took that off people's plates as well by creating a new routine that also allows them to not think about it in that, as much, but it does change their habit, right? It changed the substance of that routine. So I love that. Good. I would say anyone listening who's thinking about understanding customers and changing behaviors, that's a great lesson right there. I like that a lot.
Yep. I think part of what is kind of behind the scenes there on that statement, Ty, is that there has to be, at least for us, what we've seen is kind of this hyper focus on the product and the product quality. Because, there's a lot of tips and tricks to, keep people subscribing to a product, whether it's through ordering flows flows and making reordering very easy and da-da-da-da. But at the end of the day, if the product's not good, the product's not good.
Yep.
No one wants it regularly delivered every 3 months, right? And I think, and I bring this up too, because I think especially in the sustainability space, I've seen kind of this assumption that, well, as long as the product I'm bringing to market, speaking as, maybe it's another company or, first time company going to market for the first time, as long as the product I'm delivering to the market is more sustainable than what's currently on the market, then people are going to eat it up regardless if it's more expensive, regardless if the quality is less, regardless if it's less convenient. And it's just not true. It is. I'll tell you that we've been very much focused. So we're at price parity with all the major toilet paper brands. We're right there on quality. And I think we raised the bar in a big way on convenience. Mm-hmm. So, and those are 3 value adds. I didn't talk about sustainability yet. And we're talking about price. And that's what people care about, right? Like we have to meet them where they're at on what really matters. And then the sustainability aspect of it has to be like, okay, great. Now I'm into bamboo paper. If we flipped it, and because we try to do that for a while, if we flip it, it doesn't work. You have to kind of be right there and kind of raise the bar on all of these kind of core elements of the product. Just relying alone on, well, it's more sustainable, so why wouldn't you just absolutely love it? Doesn't really work, especially when you start to think about how do you actually shift a routine, because you can get a one-time purchase relatively easy on kind of any product, but when the package actually delivers, and things like, okay, I'm buying a sustainable product, maybe the price is there, quality's there, but is the packaging recyclable or was it shipped in plastic? And you see that a lot too. It's like, X, Y, and Z product is more sustainable, and then it shows up wrapped up in plastic at your house, and then the consumer's like, well, what? Like, do you think I was dumb? Like, what is this? This term you hear a lot. So you guys have heard it from other folks, guests that you've had on this podcast around this kind of quote unquote greenwashing type of kind of tactic is very real. And I would say consumers every day are getting kind of sharper and sharper to it. They don't play games, right? If they see some bullshit, they'll call it out. So you have to really, right, exactly.
Yeah. You're just totally going into the second part of this question. So, some sustainable climate tech companies, they intentionally avoid marketing that they're sustainable, that they're good for the environment. Tesla is a great example, right? Why have you guys chosen the opposite? You guys lean heavy in the sustainable side of things, but while still having a phenomenal product.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think for us, when people are looking on social media, wherever they're going to kind of see some impression for a new product, I think generally people, they want to do the right thing. They want to make the sustainable swap. They are interested in, when we say, for example, I think go to our website now, the hero image, the first thing you get, all it says is this paper saves trees. People generally viscerally that sounds like a statement I'm into. What else? Let's dig into. We do want to kind of capture their attention with the kind of core of why our company exists, which is to stop cutting down trees to make paper. Yeah. But then back to my earlier kind of point is we have to back that up at the same time.
It has to be.
Right.
Yeah.
So we have to back it up on the price, on the quality, on the convenience, on everything else. But generally people are kind of, attached to our mission and what we want to do. And so we want to lean into that. And we also, and there's part of this here too, where going back to kind of cutting through the noise, we're always trying to find interesting and creative ways to kind of position what we're doing. So people say, oh, I never thought about that. I never did think about toilet paper being made from trees and the amount of trees we cut down across the globe every single day.
Right.
That's interesting. So we're always testing ways to kind of get that message across. But I think that leaning into the sustainability of it will always be at the forefront because we know that we can back it up on everything else.
Nice. And so just to hit that note home one more time, you guys are price parity to all the major toilet paper products out there.
That's right. Yeah. And that's been, and crucial for us from the get-go. We never wanted anyone to pay the sustainability tax.
Yeah.
So to say, right? Because it won't work. Again, maybe individuals that are buying a recycled paper product and are very much invested in making sustainable switches and are willing to put money on the line to do it. Sure. But at the same time, so here's the recycled paper still is in single digits market share. And it's been around for 20, 30 years.
Wow.
They haven't
really?
It's still
I didn't realize
the
that.
Minority. Yeah.
Wow.
Because the quality's there or the lack of quality. And so it's the other 90% that we're super interested in. And they've already said they're not going to switch to, recycled. They're still using cottonelle or whatever it is. So if we start to say, hey, don't worry, it's a small tax. It's a sustainability tax. Don't worry about it. Like it's not gonna go far. So for us, we're at price parity with all the major kind of national health brands out there for paper products.
Well, and that is one of the big topics we're obviously exploring here on this podcast this season is we are talking as much as we can to people who are doing this for profit, right? Like there are a lot of government programs, nonprofits, et cetera. We're talking primarily to for-profit companies. And typically we have seen this idea of the sustainability tax, and are people willing to pay for? You mentioned the kind of the early adopter, the one that's going to do it. They are going to pay a little bit extra because they believe in the cause. But this choice you guys made is pretty important, and I think it goes back to our favorite word, breaking this routine. Do you just think the product doesn't hold up? Like because people are so used and need toilet paper, they just wouldn't do it. What about the other products that are doing this? Should we be paying for sustainability tax to some degree, I guess is where I'm heading with this, even though you guys chose something different, a different path.
Yeah. Should we be paying the sustainability tax? In fact, we're touching on, we're getting into the philosophical, macroeconomic, political science realm. Is this coming from your research that, was a little bit political junkie back in the day, studied political science, probably have a political view on this. I think it's an interesting question. I don't know if I know the answer to it, Ty, to be honest. I think we have, in terms of kind of new brands coming to market that are offering a solution or an sustainable alternative to something that's existing now. If we want to drive as much change as possible, as quickly as possible, we have to make it as easy. And when I say we, in terms of people that are innovating in plastics and recycling and everything else, we have to make it as easy for people to make a swap to the new product, assuming that we all want to do this as quickly as we can. And again, from a philosophical stance, I don't know the right answer to should we be shifting our expectations as a culture to pay more for sustainable goods, or is the onus on the companies producing the goods to figure out a way to be competitive on price? Tactically speaking, for us, we're super focused on let's just make this as easy as possible, because to bring it back to the very beginning of the conversation, we don't have that much time where people are going to be making considerations on their paper product, right? We're not selling the new iPhone here. We're going to go side by side comparison, spec for spec, a $1,500 decision. We have a very small window of time where people are making a consideration on this purchase. And the last thing we want is for someone to have to be doing some mental math, I'm paying 20% more for this. Is it worth it? How does that add up over the year? Let's just make it easy and say, you're going to see no change in terms of the cost. So that then we can focus our conversation on everything else. Why is bamboo better? How can you recycle this box? And all the stuff that we really want to spend time talking about.
You took that worry away. I'm not paying it. I can talk about this other stuff. Well, and the point you make around urgency is a powerful one, I think. And I think it's not said. It's said enough by the ones that really are scared and worried about climate change. And they're saying it's already too late, right? I think the other side of it, though, the ones that are trying to solve the problem are kind of willing to take these, have these other hurdles in place, maybe because, they're not willing to make their own sacrifice. I'm assuming it was a sacrifice to go to price parity right out of the gate to meet that urgent need. I think it's a powerful one. To that point, last question from me, and then Jacob, I think we got to jump into the rapid mayhem questions. But from this perspective, and you're now being in this industry for a bit, what do you think is the next big step change in climate action or sustainability?
So I personally spend a ton of time thinking about the model home or the modern domicile for the kind of next class of individuals that are going out on their own, kind of post undergrad college, renting their first apartment, buying their first home. What does that home look like, and how is it different from our homes today? And how is it different from our homes 20 years ago? And I think you're going to see, now I don't know, if we look at from one of our other topics, the transition to EVs and that kind of step function change in automobiles, what is that for the home? There's people working on all kinds of interesting stuff, from solar panel to tree-free paper in the bathroom to whatever else. And so I think we'll see kind of what it what it looks like, but I think people are going to interact with their environments very, very differently in the future, especially because I think when you look at different generations and age groups, the group I keep kind of referencing that's leasing their first apartments right now, they've grown up with the alarm bells already ringing every single day around climate change, right? They've had more transparency now into new products, new brands launching than through social media and technology than ever before. Yeah. So it's kind of, to me, it's kind of changed the game a bit, where the kind of, voting with your dollars in terms of how you're going to prioritize purchases for your daily life, for your home, your office, whatnot, is going to be dramatically different with this kind of new generation moving out into the real estate world for the first time than it ever was, and even now, because of these things I've mentioned. So I think you're going to see, like I said, kind of a vastly different interaction with our lived environment. I know that's kind of been a topic or a topic du jour for a while. How do we interact with our lived environments, and architects and whatnot have focused on this problem far longer than I've even been alive. But I'm very much focused on what products do we fill our homes with. I think plastics are going to be long gone. I think composting rates are going to go up like crazy. Recycling rates are going to go up like crazy because, one, the awareness is going to be there. The products that are being delivered to someone's homes are going to be rethinking packaging and everything else, so it makes it easier to recycle and compost. I think it's going to be very, very different when you kind of snapshot 24-year-old's apartment now or in a couple of years from now versus 5 years ago. And that's what I spent a ton of time thinking about.
Another theme I just heard underlying all this: meet them where they are, meet them where they live. Yep. I feel like is a lot of what you guys are doing, what you are thinking a lot about. That's really cool.
All right, let's do it. So Ryan,
I like it.
We do something special called the Rapid Mayhem questions. Got some questions around bamboo, deforestation. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
You might need to do some stretches. All right. Cool.
Yeah, rapid fire. Let's go.
All right, true or false? There are around 700 species of bamboo.
Ooh, false. But not for the reason you might think. It's actually more than 700. It's closer to about 1,200 species of bamboo.
That is true. You are right. All right. Number 2, true or false? Bamboo is one of the strongest building materials with a tensile strength of 24,000 psi. It's stronger than a mild steel, which is about 23,000 psi.
The rapid fire answer is false. I feel like you were setting me up there for a trick question, because it is the strongest building material. It is the strongest building material, is stronger than steel, but the PSI is closer to 30,000.
That's true.
Wow.
And I think it's 29. Yeah, 28. Yeah,
exactly.
And
it's crazy. Crazy.
Right? Bamboo's stronger than steel.
It's amazing.
It's super interesting.
Amazing.
That's incredible. Your bamboo knowledge is off the charts. All right, number 3.
Absolutely.
Tropical rainforests cover less than 10% of the Earth's area, yet they're home to more than half of our planet's terrestrial animal species. True or false?
That's true. And that's about right. 80% of all terrestrial species live in forests. I know this question was on tropical rainforests, but 80% of species make their home in forests, generally across the which is, there's a lot of stats around how many trees does it take to make one box of toilet paper, and number of trees we're cutting down, which is, we should understand those stats, but it's super interesting. It's very interesting to me to think of, not interesting, but sad might be the better word, but to think about the ecosystems that we're destroying. That's much more difficult to quantify. You think about 80% of terrestrial species live in forests. I know this is rapid fire, and now I'm on another tangent.
No,
which
is
probably another theme of this episode, unfortunately, for both of you guys and your listeners, but thought I'd throw that in there. But
I mean, like you said, your knowledge on this stuff is off the charts, man. We're very well done.
We'll see if I can make it to the end. Hit me with the next one, Jacob.
Okay, last one. The paper industry contributes 7% of global CO2 emissions. True or false? And this is as of 2017. That was my source.
Yeah, 2017. Let me say true. I think that the newer research shows getting up closer, like double digits, but let's say 2017 is true, 7%.
Wow.
All right, man, 4 out of 4.
Wow.
Nailed it. Nailed it. All right. We either have guests who totally flunk it, or they just the mark. It seems like, okay, wonderful. Rapid Mayhem questions close. All right, we can wipe our brows a little bit. All right, Ryan, call to action. Climate change is so big, people often feel helpless in trying to help. What's the equivalent of what a listener can do? Maybe say like the average soccer mom.
My answer probably is not going to surprise you much, but I think that in all seriousness, kind of what seems like small immaterial changes really add up in the aggregate. And so finding kind of small changes in your daily life, your daily routine, swapping your traditional toilet paper for tree-free paper, swapping something plastic-free for what is traditionally made of plastic, finding things that can end up in the compost versus the landfill. These things in aggregate really add up and drive real meaningful change. And so that to me is always my seat takes. I agree. You can feel very helpless. You know, we talked about EVs, for example, and then people like, I switch everything, or what about charging my EV and how do it can become overwhelming. There's so many different solutions and alternatives. Right. To me, it's just like, bring it back to home. What's kind of one small, simple thing you can swap out now? Because like we talked about earlier as well, like once you make that first swap, you kind of get inspired to be like, what else is out there?
Yeah. Love it.
How else can I make a sustainable swap? So.
Well, and that's sustainable in itself. Start where you are, start small. You don't have to solve the climate, challenge yourself and do everything, but start where you are. I love that. I think that's actually a very actionable request of most people. Well, man, it's been awesome as always. Where can we find you, Ryan Fritsch and Cloud Paper?
Where can you find Ryan Fritsch, the individual? Our team, our company is kind of scattered across the U.S. I'm in Portland. Living in Portland now. Our company's was started and is still based in Seattle with a large distribution footprint in Seattle. But I've been born and raised Pacific Northwest and in Northeast Portland now. And where to find Cloud Paper is, so we're sold online exclusively right now.
Cloudpaper.co.
Cloudpaper.co. Yep. That's the best place to find us. We are on GoPuff. If you have GoPuff in your city, which is in most cities now, we are on Amazon. But the best place to go is cloudpaper.co. And then code Mayhem as of today will start working as well.
Wow.
Yeah, code Mayhem. Only on cloudpaper.co though. Won't work on Amazon or elsewhere, but it's
and they get what with that?
15% off their subscription. Yeah, so it's material. 15% off.
That's material. That's a double pun right there.
Mayhem. Yep.
That's a double pun.
That's right. Hell yeah. And by the way, I ordered Cloud Paper through GoPuff yesterday. It came within 30 minutes. It was amazing. Like legitimately the experience of getting it very quickly, using the product. Loved it. Very dense product too. You feel like it's going to last you a week plus sort of a thing,
There's a lot of value in that role. Yep. And now that you've tried it and you love it, you can go to our website, use code Mayhem, get 15% off, be a lifetime subscriber.
Oh, yeah.
There we go.
And it's a way for people to get started, like you said a second ago. Like, this is your way. Like, get started today, helping the climate, cloudpaper.co. Love it. Yep. All right, Ryan. As always, man, super, super great to talk to you. Really knowledgeable and a lot of practical, ways to change our lives. And I mean our lives, like the bigger climate future of our lives. I appreciate that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate it, guys. Ty,
thanks so
Jacob.
much, man.
Super fun conversation.
We'll talk to you soon.
All right.
Thank you again.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
See you, Ray.
Bye. Bye, guys.
Boom. How was that? Well, there's more. So keep listening. We speak with climate tech leaders and change makers in EV, reforestation, solar energy, flood mapping, and a whole lot more. Also, you can give feedback or check out show notes at our website, climatemayhem.com. Thanks for listening and see you next time.
Oh, don't forget, if you found this valuable or interesting at all, please hit subscribe. That way we know you're loving it. So just go to Spotify or whatever podcast app you're on, hit that subscribe button at the top. Production was done by Daniel Steenkamp with cover art by Harrison Glenn. This is Jacob Kubica with my legendary colleague, Ty Wolf motherfucking Jones. Peace out, Climate Mayhem. Out.